So the first thing you want to do in GameMaker 8.1 Lite is to go through the tutorial set up on the side here for an introduction to GameMaker. So in this tutorial it's going to help you make a simple game, and the first thing you do on this tutorial is to make sure you're not in an advanced mode. And the second thing to do in the tutorial is to load all the sprites with your sprite button here, or you can go to the resources and create a sprite there. It's the same button, so just click that and we're going to load up all the sprites. So all the sprites should be in your tutorial 1 folder that comes with the program. So we're just going to load them all in here. Gonna match the names that they give us, so SPR for sprite, apple. We're just gonna click OK. That's gonna load the apple. We're gonna add another sprite, load sprite. We're gonna add the banana. We have a banana sprite. Then the bomb. Then we're gonna add the cherry. Then we're gonna add the wall, or the strawberry. And we finally add the wall. And that's all we need to do for the first part. Now we need to make these all into objects. So here's our object button here, which we also find in resources here. It's the blue ball. So we're gonna do object, set it to apple, set it to the apple picture, make sure it's visible. We're gonna do the same for the rest. Let's make the wall object. Just add the wall. Make sure it's visible. Make sure it's a solid, because the wall's what we're going to bounce off of. So okay. So now we got to add functionality to our first object that we created, which is our apple object. So we're just going to double click on the apple, and then we need to add an event. As you can see down here, you add a creation event. And it just wants you to let it move in all directions, so we're going to drag that over. This lets you move into all directions. We're just going to highlight the directions that we want to move it into and give it a speed of 8, and just simply click OK. We move on to the next part, and it asks us to add a collision event. So we're going to add a collision event. and we're going to collide with the wall, of course. And so when we collide with the wall, we want it to bounce off the wall, so we just drag over the bounce function. And those should be fine, the settings that we have there. Then we want to add a clicking event. So mouse, left click, and on the left click we want it to, this will be when the apple is clicked with your left mouse button, we want to use a jump, so the object randomly jumps to a different part of the screen. So we drag that over, 0, 0 for a random position, click OK. And we also want to add a score increase if the apple or any of the other fruit are clicked, but right now we're dealing with the apple, so it'll just be for the apple. It's down here, it's our first top left object here. We're just going to drag that in, and we're going to set it to 50. So we get, and we're going to check mark it for relative, so we get 50 points every time you click on another apple or eventually another fruit. Now we need to create our room to have our objects in. So like usual, we have our room object here, and then we have create a room is also here, so we can click it in either spot. Now we have our room. We'll put in like 3 apples. We can switch between the objects down here. And then we can test out our game. We could save our game file, save as, whatever you want to call it. We can test our game out here by running it. As you can see, all our apples are moving around. We can also add our wall object in. So you can either click them one by one or just hold down the shift button and quickly pop them in there. Now we can run it again to make sure that everything's working right, that our apples are bouncing off our walls, which they are, and all in different directions just like we wanted them to. And just close out of that, go on to the next step. And the next step is to add a background. So we have our background image button right here. We're going to load a background from our tutorial box, the wood. Open that up. Just call it, they have it as back_wood, so that's what I'll call it. So just go back to our room, and then we can go to backgrounds, and we go to our background 0, and we can set it to the wood by switching it there. Now we have a nice background for our game. Next thing we have to do is to load in some sound files for our game. So here's our create sound button. We're just going to load the sound files off the computer, or the sound files that are given to us in the tutorial 1 file for this tutorial. So let's use the click sound. We're going to load that in. Now we have our click sound loaded into our game. And we can go back to the Apple object. On our left button click, we drag in the sound object, so we add the sound. Instead of no sound, we can use the sound that was given to us, and we don't want to loop it because you just want to hear one click sound when you click on the apple. We go to our next step. We want to add some background music to the whole game. So we're going to go back to creating a sound. So we load in a sound, and we're going to add our music for our background. We'll label it music. So we have our music MIDI that we're going to loop as we're playing the game. So we need a new object for our sound. So let's create a new object, and we can call it back_music. There's no sprite for this one. We're going to keep it as it is. And so now we need to go back to our room and add our background music. Wrong spot. Right here. We'll take that object, and we're going to click it in there. So now our music's going to be loaded. Well, we have to set it up so we have our background music, create an event, and upon this event we're going to drag in the sound, and we're going to set it to music, and we're going to set it to true for looping so the song doesn't stop during the game. We're going to go to our next step now. We're just going to add more fruit. You can either retype everything again, or you can just duplicate the object. So we can duplicate the apple object, and then we can switch it from object apple to object banana by changing its name there, and then switching the picture here. And for the banana, on the click, they changed in the tutorial the score to 100 points relative. also the directions, they also changed. So we're just going to make it move diagonally by unchecking these arrows here. And then we're going to speed it up to 12 and click OK. So now we have a faster fruit that is worth more points. We're going to confirm our object by clicking OK here. Click OK on our music. And then we're going to go to the next step. So we have to add bombs in to make the game a little more difficult. So first thing we're going to do is load the sound for the bomb. So we're going to create a new sound, load in our explosion. I'm just going to name it explosion. Click OK. Now we're going to create an object for the bomb. And of course set it to the bomb sprite. We're going to call it bomb. So we're going to add a creation event where the bomb just simply jumps to a random spot upon creation. Then we need to add an event where you accidentally clicked on the bomb with your mouse, so a left button click. So we're going to first add in the explosion sound. Make sure it's not in a loop. And then we're going to add in some wait time with our sleeping time to let the player know that he just clicked on a bomb and it just exploded. Next thing you want to do, because you just clicked on a bomb and the game just stopped, or it was game over, so we want to add the high score that you got. So we're going to go to the score tab, and then here's the high score object. We're going to drag that in. And then we could have no background, or we could set it to the wood background that we imported for that screen, the high score screen. We should show our border or not, and we have our different colors for our text and everything. And we're just going to set it up as the tutorial has it, so we're going to set it to red and blue. Click OK. Then we're going to have to restart the game. So we go into our main 2 tab and drag in the game restart. We're going to add some of these objects into our game. Switch to the banana, throw 1 banana in there. And we can throw I don't know, 3 bombs in there. And we're going to save our game. And we're going to test it out. As you can see, the music is now playing. And if you click on one of these items, So now we have our game board set up with our fruits, our apples, our banana, and then some bombs. So to create bombs on our screen instead of just the original 3 that we put in there, we got to add a timer. So we're going to drag in the timer from our main 2 tab. And we're going to set that timer to 60 steps. Make sure it's alarm 0. So that's 60 steps is equal to every 2 seconds a new bomb will appear. And so we also have to add an event, an alarm event, alarm 0. And in the alarm event, we have to drag in our timer, set it to 60 steps again for alarm 0. And we also, of course, need to create our bomb, so we drag in the create instance and we just set it to our object of our bomb. And we're going to switch those so our object is created and then our timer is set back to 60, and we go through the loop and we will continually get bombs onto our screen. So just going to click OK on all that. Now we have put 3 bombs in here, put a banana in here, put 3 apples in here, and our sound over here, and we have our wall surrounded. And so we can save it and then we can test it out. So we have our music playing in the background, we have our apples moving, and we have our sound working for when we click on our fruit. And our points, we get 50 points per apple clicked. And then if we hit the bomb, explosion sound happens and the game ends. We can type in our name and just click out of that. And that's all for the creating bombs step. And then after you created your bombs and your fruit and set your score and all that, you can just add game information down here for people who don't know nothing about your game. And save, put in your title, fruity game, or whatever you call your game, and some information about how to play the game. And just click the check mark up here. And so next time you run the game, if you click F4, you'll get, F1, you'll get some information about the game that you typed in there. You press escape to get out of there. And of course, F4 brings you to the full screen. Just click F4 again till you get back to our regular screen. Just X out of that to stop it. And the last part, well, you can add more different types of fruit in there too if we want to. So we can just make more objects, like we can duplicate the apple object and call it the cherry object, give it the cherry picture, and it'll have all the same attributes as I noted before as the apple. You can change them if you want to. Like we could set the relative score to 400 for the cherry, and just gonna click OK. Then we have our cherry, and we just switch our object to the cherry, and then we can add a cherry there, and a cherry there, or how many you want, and just click check, and we're going to save, and we can run our game again to see our cherries are going through there, and they're bouncing off everything just like the apples were, except for now I get 400 points per cherry, which is great. And we're just gonna X out of there. And so the last part you're gonna want to do after you gave some information about how to play your game is to create an executable, so in case someone doesn't have GameMaker can play your game. So we're just going to go to create executable right here under file and name it whatever you want, fruity game, and I'm just going to save that on the desktop. So we got our fruity game, we're going to save it, and so now we have our executable. We don't need to use our GameMaker now. You can send this to a friend, the file, and open up the executable, and then you have your game on your desktop. So that's the intro to GameMaker, and that's about it. Alright.